Hi, everyone, and welcome to OR Today webinars. We have a great presentation for you featuring Kim Hamilton and Shawn Sefton, both of Hospital IQ. Shawn and Kim will discuss the ways that AI and automated workflows can help dynamically manage blocks and improve perioperative performance. OR Today would like to thank our sponsor, Hospital IQ. Hospital IQ provides an operations management software platform that uses artificial intelligence to anticipate and direct actions, enabling health systems to achieve and sustain peak operational performance to improve patient access, clinical outcomes, and financial performance. Hospital IQ's cloud-based software platform combines advanced data analytics, machine learning, and simulations technology with an easy-to-use, intuitive user interface to deliver optimized surgical resource alignment, patient flow, and staff scheduling capabilities. Hundreds of leading hospitals and health systems rely on Hospital IQ to help them make the right operational decisions the first time, every time. To learn more, please visit hospiq.com. For nearly 20 years, OR Today has provided perioperative and SPD professionals with up-to-date news and information about their profession, including new guidelines, techniques, and equipment, as well as practical information for career building, problem solving, and overall well-being. Make sure to visit OR Today at the upcoming AORN conference in Orlando on August 7th through the 10th. We'll be at booth number 29062. Today's webinar is eligible for one continuing education hour by the State of California Board of Registered Nursing. You can obtain your certificate by completing today's post-webinar survey. More details on this at the end of today's webinar. We will wrap up today with a live Q&A. Please make sure to submit your questions at any time during the webinar. We'll get to as many questions as time allows. As I mentioned earlier, our presenters today are Shawn Sefton and Kim Hamilton. Shawn, you may begin whenever you are ready.
Hi, thanks so much. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is Shawn Sefton, and joining me today is Kim Hamilton. I'm the CNO at Hospital IQ and the VP of Clinical Solutions, and Kim is our Director of Client Outcomes. I think you can see we have a combined probably 40 to 50 years of experience in healthcare and the healthcare space. So we're really excited to be with you today, and very excited to talk to you about dynamic block management. Right here on this page, we'll quickly just go over the learning objectives so that everyone knows what we're going to be covering today. So hopefully we're going to discover how artificial intelligence and automated workflows can help organizations like yours dynamically manage blocks and take their perioperative performance to the next level. We look to improve access to available OR time, create transparency for block management, simplify the process of booking OR time, and streamlining managing that block schedule. So we're really looking forward to this discussion today. And after we finish with our presentation, we actually look forward to Q&A as well. Thank you. Kim, could I have the next slide, please? So I know you all joined this webinar to hear about block, but all of you are probably saying is, who's Hospital IQ and what do they do? Well, let me tell you, we transform hospital operations. We are a team of experts with deep domain knowledge that continue to build on our own internal structure. We have folks from MIT, PwC, McKinsey, Google, teletracking, API. We're clinicians, we're inventors, we're innovators. And we really look to team with healthcare organizations around their operations and using our enterprise software. We're innovative and we scale our technology. We continue to really use our platform to build upon the things that we see are impacting the industry. We have very, very strong data scientists who predict, prescribe, and orchestrate actions. that are needed within the healthcare operations platform. We are recognized as experts in the industry. Just look at the credentials here. Our strategic partnerships are with Cerner, Allscripts. We are in the App Orchard for Epic. We have Siemens Healthineers who are working with, and even most recently, Baxter. I don't know about you, but the first IV bag I hung was from Baxter. So it's incredible to be recognized with all these major players in the industry. But what's really our goal? We're focused on sustainable outcomes. We really have a proven track record of delighting and growing our base by over 100 customers. What we're really trying to do is produce that sustainable result. So let's get started. Digital transformation. How many of us are hearing that word digital these days? Digital health, digital transformation. Digital transformation is really the adoption of digital technology by health organizations to improve business processes, clinical care, value for customers, value for patients, and really innovation. That is what we are doing. We are creating this value across the system, just not one specific area, not just one specific facility, but across your continuum. As you look at the bottom of this slide, it really shows you how deep and wide we are. We have enterprise solutions that really achieve performance excellence. We have perioperative solutions that really increase access and utilization for your periop and procedural areas. Inpatient, imagine, improve that throughput, something everyone is chasing these days. Staffing, once you get this all optimized, you've got to make the staffing, and we really want it aligned to demand. And then, of course, infusion, one of those care areas that are very crucial to our organizations. How are we doing this? We're doing it in 3 ways. First, we promote excellence. Our platform is the primary enabler to a culture of improvement. We create a center of gravity for performance improvement. Next, systemness, another word that we hear out in the industry right now. And it's really that ability to just standardize and scale across the broad group of departments and hospitals and the entire system, making sure that everyone is aligned and everyone is speaking the same language. And then, of course, boosting efficiency. That's what it's really all about. We are going to provide a better experience that makes everyone's jobs easier, which is why our platform is so broadly adopted. Very quickly, a story, we had a chairman out at universities, hospitals who had come from the clinic, and he said, listen, Shawn and Kim, if it has to be as easy as doing an email. And I will tell you, we started with one hospital there, and they have adopted to 13 organizations right now, based on the fact that we made it as easy as writing an email. So let's jump into the next slide. Block scheduling, the Periop standard. If you've heard me talk before, you've heard me tell a story, and I want to share it with all of you because I think it's important. Many don't know how really we became efficient in Periop. There was a doctor by the name of Dr. Caroline Palmer. She was the first woman anesthesiology chair at Stanford Medical School in 1909. Many think that she was the key contributor to how we become efficient in the OR. Her recommendations, published in 1923, were clearly ahead of their time and really nearly indistinguishable for those currently practicing anesthesia departments in university settings. While most of her care centered around the care of anesthesia patients, there were also recommendations around surgical services operations. Palmer noted that the operating room schedule should be sufficiently flexible to provide for delays from surgeons arriving late, and also for operations that required more than the allotted time. And most importantly, she also thought time should be allocated to surgeons to do their cases. So imagine, we can assume that this was the start of what we know as the surgeon block concept. It's also important to note that around this time, 3 major organizations were formed. The American Society of Anesthesiology in 1905, the American College of Surgeons in 1913, and of course, the Association of Operating Nurses in 1949. So even from then, we have seen through the years how operating room management has evolved. So we all know that some organizations have tried that concept of open time scheduling, and I'm just going to kind of debunk that real quick. So it's a model that allows first come, first serve, right, when you're scheduling. When I was in leadership at Boston Medical Center, we tried it. Ugh, it was awful because the model just produced complete chaos. And most organizations have abandoned that approach, returning to the block schedule model that we're going to explore with you today. But still, perioperative leaders still continually struggle with the block challenges. And you can see that here on the right side of our screen. Traditional approaches are still rigid and they lead to dissatisfaction. They create still that unpredictable chaos around scheduling, rescheduling, or canceling cases on demand. The model is time consuming. We see there are lots of manual processes still. When we go in, Kim and I go in to speak with clients or new clients, we still see a lot of manual processes trying to manage that block schedule. And that causes a lot of data doubt. So we see that often too, that people still don't believe the data. And then trying to communicate updates clearly, timely, and in orderly fashion just doesn't happen. So what you're seeing is underutilized OR time. There's clearly a lack of visibility into unneeded, desired, and available OR time. When you speak to surgeons and you ask them about their time or getting time, all they do is refer to that block schedule as the black hole, and something that they have to hold on to and they run their whole life around because it's so important to them and they never want to give it up. And that's what we have to think about. And then again, and you're going to hear this throughout our talk, it's that lack of trusted data. You know, what is that? What does that mean? It makes it really difficult to identify improvements because you've got people that are very disenfranchised, and every time you bring up any kind of data, they want to poke holes in it and they just don't believe it. But even with these challenges, the result is block scheduling, as opposed to opening schedule, has become the operating model for many, many decades now. It's really due to its perceived, and I say perceived, logic and simplicity. And truly, there are some benefits. So let's just look at the benefits quickly as well. We have to do the pros and the cons. Stakeholders experience several of these allocations, and it is seen to help them organize. There's predictable and regular scheduling. And that's great for the surgeons and the other stakeholders, but most importantly, and I always want to circle back to this because I'm a nurse, it's really important for the patient, right? We can work directly with patients when we have something that is predictable and regular. They can get their surgery scheduled, they can do their pre and post visits, and even if they need to change it, there's something there because it's a bit organized. It's really better for managing caseload variability. So block holders or people that are running that really do have a working model. It may be difficult, it may be laborious, it may take time, but there is a model to run and analyze. And in concept, it does address some of the case variability because you are going to be able to put like cases together. It's a robotic room, it's a hybrid room. We're going to have doctors follow themselves so that we can keep our case cards similar and we don't have it all over the place as you would see with open scheduling. One of the #1 issues when trying to do improvement is not being able to deal with the variability. It does create cooperative relationships between the surgeons and the hospitals. Surgeons can have confidence that they can book a procedure on a given day using their recurring blocks, while also knowing that the facility will have the time and the procedure and pretty much be ready for them. Additionally, they can plan their schedule time and their clinic time, because as we know, that block, they have to run that clinic time around it. So it also gives them the ability to get that organized. Again, to my earlier comment is their life runs around their block, right? It also helps surgeons build and maintain their practice and brings a measure of steady predictability to that practice, even from their revenue stream. And believe it or not, what we read and we see, it also provides them a mark of status and achievement within the profession. And lastly, it's great for nursing and peri-op leaders to be able to easily plan and deploy the resources by having confidence that they're the number one choice for these surgeons, because we know it's a revenue center, so we want that operating room used. And it's also important because they can critically now look at resourcing, doing staffing, making sure specialty nursing or techs are available, and making sure that schedule is all put together. But it's still complicated. Next slide, please. Managing the block schedule is high profile, high impact. It's a complicated matrix. We all know that. The reallocation process, if you need to make changes, or as I say, right-sizing the block, is extremely challenging due to the multiple interlinking touch points between stakeholders and their various areas of focus. It's impossible really to target one factor in block scheduling for improvement or change without inadvertently affecting many others, as you can see here depicted. Any block allocation or scheduling change needs to be considered holistically. Even if the impetus, so even if everyone knows that they need to reallocate or do something with the block, it often falls to the peri-op leaders or nursing leaders to execute. And often that's really burdensome and puts them in harm's way, quite frankly, around getting things resolved. And sometimes, as we often see, we see block schedules that really have not been right-sized with utilization that's very, very low. We would suggest that all the perioperative stakeholders need to equally engage and be aligned towards improving utilization. But unfortunately, the incentive workflows and tools or lack of are not there or always in place for these organized to do this. Often they are struggling with trying to download files and do analysis and not really understanding what they have. And often we see that it's a 45-day cycle, that they close their business 30 days, and then it's 15 days to prepare. So by the time they're ready to make any kind of decisions that would assume actionable, we're 45 days later. So imagine, and in your heads, I want you to start to think about, what if we could have that real time? If you look at the matrix here, it really shows that complexity. And right now you see 4 stakeholders exhibited with 8 impact areas. I would suggest to you that I could add so many more stakeholders that aren't even here, like anesthesia, pharmacy, radiology, supply chain, central sterile, that really are also impacted by the complexity of this matrix of trying to manage that block schedule. Next slide, please. So let's get into talking about KPIs a little bit. I want to make sure that we are looking at, how we should be managing the operating room. So I'm sure what you're saying as you're seeing this is, what is this? Lagging performance indicators, and aren't those all the KPIs that we're tracking, that we're told to track, that we are at conferences to track? I get it. So hold on, let's discuss this a little bit. Inefficiencies in the system can worsen over time if not properly reviewed and actively managed. Unfortunately, even if ready and willing and able to initiate changes, many perioperative leaders focus on what we're calling here these lagging performance indicators when trying to analyze data to inform block reallocation or how they are functioning even operationally. They don't have the true picture of where the problems and opportunities lie. So let's review them a little bit and just kind of see what's out there. Prime time utilization. We all know prime time utilization is usually the hours between 7 to 3 or 7 to 5, and it's an extremely, extremely valuable commodity. But we also know that, because it's such a big commodity, that doing non-urgent procedures outside prime time are really less desired, and for the surgeons, and also it causes all kinds of havoc with causing premium pay for staffing that needs to stay later. But prime time utilization is affected with so many things. And I know, and I wish I could see your faces because you would smile with me. So if we think about prime time utilization and what affects them negatively, we start with allocation wasn't right, prime time isn't right. We see first case delays. We see long running cases. We see auto release policies that are not releasing time to be used day before, 2 days before, 3 days before. How can I get cases on? So what happens? We have add-on and emergent cases that are hitting the schedule every day. So it's really difficult to pinpoint areas of process improvement when all of this is happening at the same time. First case on time starts. The delays in first case on time starts are really disruptive to patients, to other surgeons, and really to the daily schedule. But barring really egregious or repeated delays across the perioperative suite, targeting first case on time starts as a metric for improvement will really yield minor benefits. We need to think about that because we all go after it. I go after it still, and we're not telling you not to go after it. But if you think about it, it really does yield minor benefits, typically maybe 15 to 30 minutes of additional OR time. And despite all that extra investment in process, you really can't get a case on here. So what you're only trying to do is really get the day started so you don't have things running over late. While improving the time leakage results in better performing departments, the minor time savings sometimes it's not really worth all the effort you need to go in to make that happen. Turnover time is similar. As with first case on time starts, barring significant organizational issues with excessively long running turnover times, a focus on reducing turnover time won't create enough cumulative time savings to be useful for scheduling new procedures. While hospitals should target the 20 to 35 minutes for their average turnaround time, frankly, we are seeing in the industry with all our clients, people aren't really that far off from that. So what does it take to put all this initiative in to try to go after minutes? Is it really going to make the big difference that you're looking for with all that process improvement investment? And then this block utilization. Block utilization simply does not have enough clear-cut definition, or it's not enforced strongly enough to make it a good performance metric. Categorizing procedures as utilizing scheduled block can vary from hospital to hospital and even from peri-op leader to leader. I think if we could take a survey among you all, you would give us different definitions on how you are categorizing that. Accepted industry definitions and benchmarks are needed before block utilization metrics can really inform areas for improvement. Let me go through a few examples so they resonate to you and the things that we see as we go in to put our systems in. These probably sound familiar, right? Performed by block holder on a different day than their scheduled day. Do we count it or we don't count it? Performed by a block holder on the same day but out of block. Do we count it or do we don't count it? Runs longer or shorter within their block time. So is that okay? They're going to have a deficit in their block time if it's shorter, and what are we going to do with that utilization? Delayed or long running cases, well, do we put that in because it was just complicated or maybe they got bumped? Should replacement procedures be scheduled in release block time or are they out? What do we do with flip rooms? We always have to think about flip rooms. And also multiple procedures performed in one block. Is that okay? Because I'm the block holder, but I did the procedure with that surgeon over there in his block, and how does that affect my block? And it goes on and on and on. With lagging performance metrics that don't provide a true path forward and data sources that are too complex to mine and analyze, performance improvement becomes nearly impossible to define, let alone attain, even if all the stakeholders are aligned that that improvement is needed. That leads to a lot of avoidance as a tactic and problems that persist. We just see that things just stay static. We don't see things changing. Next slide, please, Kim. Although block allocation and tracking KPIs certainly has its benefits, there is a disconnect between the most high-tech, most expensive, most profitable department in the hospital being scheduled or managed with antiquated and manual methods. Managing the block schedule is, again, we've said this earlier, high profile, high impact task, but rigid, burdensome, and opaque manual processes prevent significant changes to the status quo. Problems created by the rigidity of block management include add-ons are increased and become very disruptive to the daily schedule, difficulty for surgeons without block to get OR time that fits their schedule, block holders face roadblocks to getting OR time outside of their existing block when needed, new surgeons without block struggle to build their practice, accounting of and calculating block utilization is time sensitive, cumbersome, and often manual. Stakeholders have limited awareness of block time that has been released. They just can't see it. They don't know it's available. Auto-releasing policies, as I mentioned earlier, don't contain a mechanism for utilizing the unneeded time by booking new cases into that time. And conflict among stakeholders due to lack of trusted, here we go again, transparent, accurate performance data really deters improvement initiatives. Existing block allocation based on historical surgeon performance can quickly become inaccurate or outdated, leading to underutilized ORs and dissatisfaction among the surgeons. So what does this rigid process create? It's the cycle of underutilization. OR utilization is effectively capped with existing block management methods. It's not uncommon, and again, I wish I could see all your faces so I could see your heads going like this. It's not uncommon to find ORs with over 90% prime time allocated to block and less than 60% of block utilization. Imagine, my whole OR is blocked, but I'm only using 60% of that. And it usually translates into the primetime OR utilization as well. Perioperative leaders, OR schedulers, and even surgeons can be aware of the underperformance and may even be aware of the distinct root causes. Again, let's go back to Carolyn Palmer. She started that conversation way back in the early 1900s. But the cycle of underutilization can be tough to break for multiple reasons. And as you can see depicted here, releasing unneeded time isn't top of mind of surgeons. They don't think about it. They hold their time, they need their time, they're afraid to give it up. What if another case comes? What am I going to do? We hold on to it to the last moment. Surgeons don't have visibility into open time. They can't see what's there. Juggling the releases and attempting to fill the capacity in advance and managing resource availability is extremely complex, very complex. And then again, and you've heard us mention this several times, and we mentioned this several times, finding trusted, accurate data on surgeon performance and fairly reallocating or right-sizing the block is difficult for perioperative leaders. Next slide. So, what do we need to think about? Certainly, block scheduling has been analyzed in multiple academic papers with similar conclusions. We see lots and lots of articles about it, constantly discussions about block scheduling. We also know that a lot of organizations will bring in consultants. Kim and I live there, you know, but the effectiveness of the consultant playbook does fade with time. And unfortunately, things do slide backwards into the old way of doing things. Efficiency factors are so complex that changes must be considered holistically, and many organizations struggle to do that. They perhaps don't have the governance structure, or they don't have the stakeholders really unified to be able to do that. How block time is allocated and managed needs to be fundamentally reconsidered. OR time management must become a dynamic practice. Hospitals need to embrace digital health and apply contemporary and leading actions of using a real-time data-driven platform that applies system-specific policies, machine learning, optimization algorithms, and accurate forecasts to their hospital's perioperative data to make recommendations that increase access to the OR, improve room utilization, improve staff utilization, streamline patient throughput, and identify opportunities for improving overall performance. My colleague Kim is now going to take you on that journey where you will learn how Hospital IQ's artificial intelligence and automated workflows can help organizations like yours identify leading performance indicators so you can then dynamically manage and take your perioperative performance to the next level through a multi-pronged approach. Kim, I hand it to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Shawn. And I am privileged now to pivot really the conversation and talk about solutioning, as I know everything that Shawn's walked through thus far, a lot of you have probably resonated with, and you can hear that we understand, the problems across the industry. And to Shawn's point, it's really the application of artificial intelligence and thoughtful combination with the workflow automation that this tool emerges within Hospital IQ that's really required in today's current healthcare landscape. Many are forced to do more with less, and with less that often refers to less people. And the only viable and sustainable solution to that is automation and technology. And so we know the paper processes, the manual interventions are all well-intended, but they often fail to be executed simply because there's a lack of time or lack of people to do it systematically in the way that's really required. So here's where technology comes in. It's embedded seamlessly into your organization and really configures the puzzle that exists to reclaim and then redistribute time in the OR to really make prime time efficiently allocated. And so what that translates to is visibility, it's actionable recommendations, and it's real-time insights to make decisions that will help improve operations across the OR. So for Hospital IQ, our goal is to really take the legwork and the guesswork out of the equation to really help leaders manage more effectively. And so when we use smart technology to enhance operations, a new method to evaluate performance emerges. And because we're leaning on technology, providing access and promoting action, there are new digital records that can be analyzed and new levels of granularity that can point to opportunities to improve without any manual intervention. In front of you on the screen are 4 indicators or really capabilities that ultimately enable management of OR time dynamically. And each of these are driven within Hospital IQ software and force a slightly different conversation around utilization. So, for example, the first one I'll pick on is the block release lead times. And so instead of automated releases that are in that 3 to 7 day time frame, think about what you could do with a 30-day lead time. That's the amount of time that averages across our clients who are using Surgeon Access. And what that's really driven by is an artificial intelligence prompt or notification to that block holder that their time is likely to go unused. With that simple reminder, we see a new change, a new opportunity to more effectively release time in advance. Scheduling transparency is about visibility that's needed by surgeons and their office staff into finding additional time to get a case accommodated that's outside of their existing block. The question that we're really calling here is, do you have scheduling transparency that's via a real-time mechanism that's also self-service? With visibility, all of a sudden, OR time becomes a commodity that can be traded more openly and transferred in a way that's not behind closed doors, not held onto or hoarded until the very last minute when there is a little opportunity to really make the most of that time. Real-time block management is a process in Hospital IQ owned by the OR schedulers. I lovingly refer to them as my stockbrokers of the OR, or block brokers might be a better name for them. But their main objective there is to really ensure the time is received and approved in a timely manner. So they're managing and approving time, they're validating, conflict checking, making sure that there are block holders that are getting alerted of time that's being approved, and so they could get that case put on the schedule in as much advance notice as possible to move forward with that pre-authorization. And lastly, holistic block management is that full life cycle of block reallocation that's often traditionally difficult to execute at the organizational level. Hospital IQ takes accessible data and translates it into a format that's actionable and can be used to deliver recommendations to your block committee or OR exec committee to show where the allocation needs to change. So it's in a ready-to-use format with key data points around who, when, and how much time needs to be redistributed based on forecasted demand. Not historical demand, what happened 30 days ago or 45 days ago, but what's going to happen in the future. The next few slides I'm going to walk through are some screenshots of Hospital IQ, really to get you ingrained into what the system looks like and how organizations across the country are using it today. So the first item here is about our block releases. And again, when you think about block releases, you might think about your own automatic releases at your organization that's designed to govern reclaiming that time as you're leading up to a week or a day of surgery. Block releases within Hospital IQ features a notification and a prompt that can be sent via email or via text message, and it's supported by intelligent automation, notifying a block holder that an upcoming time is likely to go unused. What I love about this platform and what the tool does is it not only tells you what, but why. And here you can see in the example that's with 95% confidence, time will go unused based on booking patterns in the last 12 months. So we're giving you some additional level of information that helps feel sure that the information being told to you is true and accurate, and there's actually some bit of evidence behind it as well. On the right-hand side of the screen is that example of a text message notification, includes a link, takes you directly to the platform. So what this means is accessibility. This could be in the pocket of a surgeon. This could be an email that's also sent to your office staff that's really helping them to manage that upcoming time. Behind the scenes are really complex algorithms that are constantly running, calling the question, is this time going to be used? And what it's doing is looking ahead on the schedule, seeing how far you are from the day of surgery, whether cases are currently on the schedule, and deciding if that's the right time to prompt a notification for release. For those of you with oversight into your OR schedulers, you might think about some of the time savings that you can envision with a tool like this. OR schedulers are sometimes calling those offices saying, hey, I don't see this case being scheduled in this block. Is surgeon going to use it? That takes a lot of time and effort and follow-ups, of course, and potential for missed opportunities for communication. You also have surgeons that go out on vacation and fail to remember until their automatic release goes through. And how nice would it have been to know when that surgeon was heading out, so you can pull back that time and potentially get it back to another surgeon who's looking to build their practice and is really looking for any block time that might become available. And I think the logic behind this is actually really simple and something that we're all used to in our lives today. We're all used to notifications and prompts directly to our phone or email about things that are happening for us. We get alerts that we have a package arriving or a dentist appointment next week. And that's all to let us know something's happening. Do you need to do something about it? And so in this scenario, it's really about the block holders, their office staff. You have this time coming up. Do you need to use it? The next item about scheduling transparency is exactly that. It's about visibility into what's coming up as available within the OR. And this is what we refer to often as our open marketplace. And if you need a comparison in mind, just think about Open Table, how you can go in and search for for available options at your favorite restaurant and narrow the filters to accommodate what you're really looking for. This is that same model there. And this is a static view of our block search page, but the filters there are very dynamic, and they're intended to really drill down to when a surgeon might be available. So you know that a specific campus is of relevance, the amount of time that they need in order to perform a certain case. Day of the week might be very important based on their clinic time, their current block allocation. And so taking all of that into account is what's needed in order to find time that they can then get a case put on the schedule. You can look out as far as you need into the future. And if you were to select the request button that you see here on the screen, what that does is really prompt a pop-up a piece of information that's basically asking for a little bit more about the case so that the OR schedulers who are receiving this request can do some conflict checking on their side to make sure that that's a good time, a good location for the type of case that's looking to be performed. Now, scheduling transparency can be a little bit nerve-wracking, knowing that giving access to a wide group of people is a little bit scary. But what's different about Hospital IQ is that we know what information is pertinent to the right people at the right time. So we create customized roles and permissions that really allow people to have access to the right information. And so, for example, we can ensure that surgeons are really just looking at time that's available to them. We know that you often can release time to a service line versus going to open time. So if you want a surgeon to go in and only see time that's been released to their service line, that's something we can do. Being able to also limit the campus that you can see available time is important. You might want to make sure that for a particular surgeon, they're only scheduling in one location, but for others, you might want them to see, what's available outside of the main ORs. And that's particularly relevant in today's world where we know that service rationalization is a common topic. Putting procedures in the right place for the maximum reimbursement is really important. And so when you're having that conversation with a surgeon, it's a difficult conversation at that, telling them they need to perform surgery elsewhere. But it eases the conversation when you're able to couple it with here's your options, here's where you can find availability that's going to be convenient for you and be able to accommodate your caseload at the same time. With this view, communication is established, it's documented, and cases are less at risk for leakage. The amazing thing about this technology too is that the timeliness of it all, it's real time, the transactions are a high degree of accuracy, and the opportunity to put a case on the schedule isn't missed. And so this brings me to the next capability around real-time block management. The two indicators previously discussed are part of the workflow that requires that real-time check and balance for oversight. And it goes back to my OR schedulers or my block brokers. And so they're at the receiving end of these requests, and they're really doing that conflict checking to make sure that the case time that's being requested is appropriate and can be accommodated. And they're the ideal group for it. They know all the inner workings of the OR, they know the right rooms, the right type of staff that need to be assigned for a particular case. They know what the constraints are from an equipment standpoint, so really can make sure that those are put on and assigned appropriately, given when a surgeon wants to get additional time put on. So it eliminates the puzzle piece that's really taking place as well. When you have a surgeon that's looking for time that's currently not released, we have what we call our block wait list. So when you have a wait list, it's time that somebody wants, but when it becomes available, all of a sudden you have automated machine learning that's going to tell you that that time has matched with newly released time. And you have the ability to then confirm with that surgeon, do you still want this time? It's now available. Now we take it even a step further, and if you haven't caught on quite yet, Hospital IQ is not just the make my life easier type of software, but it's also tell me the best answer software. And in this capability, we're really putting forward the best fit for awarding that block time. In this scenario, we're really just looking at performance-based metrics that are going to tell you who should actually win out should you have two surgeons competing for the same time in a waitlist type of form. But there's other things you can take into account as well. You can look at service line priority. Maybe there's a particular service line you're looking to grow from an organizational strategic standpoint. Maybe an underallocated block holder. You want to look at their metrics there and make sure that you're giving them that additional time because they're already struggling to get on the case anyway. You might want to take tenure into account. There's obviously politics at the organization, things that the OR schedulers tend to know when they're making those decisions right now on paper manually that can flow into the tool, and we're able to do that, those algorithms, and take into account what the organization's preference is. For those of you who are really familiar with how an OR scheduler's office works, you might start to see how this could really simplify and streamline process, remove all the sticky notes, the reminders, the binders that are really there to remind you to follow up with a surgeon if a time were to become available, all the knocks on the door asking for additional open time. And so if you can replace all of that with some smart technology, it's really changing the way you're managing your assets, your ORs. And that becomes more predictable because you're doing this in a way that's giving you as much lead time as possible to get these cases on the schedule in advance. And that benefits everyone, from operational leaders to frontline managers. They're afforded that luxury of being planful. And with the exception of a few add-on cases that tend to happen, costs can be better managed, and when costs are managed, those margins tend to improve. And so through this technology, it's that OR time starts being managed moment to moment, and the OR schedulers have the tools they really need to ensure a more fluid process instead of bulk getting a bunch of requests, as soon as those automated releases hit, and being able to do that in a much more fluid fashion, which keeps that efficiency high and utilization even higher. So last but not least, the holistic block management component. This is really about that comprehensive workflow that ties utilization back to block realignment. And as Shawn stated earlier, it's that right sizing approach. When you've been part of a block committee before, you've maybe heard some of the conversations around this surgeon, this block holder needs more time, and where do we put it? When we know that the block schedule is already generally at capacity, 80, 90% blocked, the only thing that means is that you have to take block away from a different surgeon who might not need that time anymore. And that's really a complicated process to manage because you need to find the right time, the right day of the week, the right week of the month that can accommodate that surgeon that needs more time. So it's a very much a fluid process that requires a lot of information to be able to make some real decisions. And so where technology comes into play here, and intelligent automation in particular, really shines, is that without needing to run any Excel models, Tableau, any macros to really figure this out, you're able to do it automatically by simply logging into Hospital IQ's Block Committee Studio. It does the math for you. And so by showing you specific block holders when they need more time or when they need less time, and also looking ahead to say, what are the needs in the upcoming months based on projected volume? How do I need to redistribute my time in order to accommodate and make the most of my prime time? And we take into account other factors as well. It's a lot about performance. We know that there's politics in play. So we're basically presenting the data that's needed to have a more effective conversation around the changes that need to be made. With having this information readily available, the analytics are taken out of the equation, and you're really starting to march forward with action, changes that need to take place, and moving forward with them and moving your organization towards achieving strategic initiatives, performance improvement, the way that you're supposed to. And so if I can summarize this workflow with one image, I'll bring you back to a revised version that you've seen earlier today. And so the workflow is really about using the artificial intelligence thoughtfully combined with workflow automation to establish visibility, accessibility, and fluidity among all the key stakeholders that this workflow touches. And so I think it's important to highlight that the software isn't there to be overly complicated. It's intended to be simple, and it's also built with the what's in it for me in mind for each of these individuals. We know that surgeons are busy. They don't have time to really be playing around with complicated tools. They need information given to them. And so being able to prompt a surgeon with releasing time via text message or via email is a way to give them the information they need to let them make a decision based on what they need for that particular case. Also finding available time. Office staff are always, trying to, reach out to the OR schedulers, asking for time, seeing what's available, and simplifying that process through the open marketplace really enables that visibility that's needed just to cut down on the back and forth communication. Your OR schedulers, they're really looking to get those cases put on the schedule. They want to do it effectively, efficiently. They want to have a good working relationship with the office staff. And so this tool really enables them to work together in collaboration, all in a digital format that allows some back and forth communication as well. And then lastly, your operational leaders who are really looking to make sure high degrees of performance, making sure that blocks are right sized, you have the right demand matched with the right size block, and then you're able to accommodate some strategic initiatives, business imperatives that the organization has and execute on them without worrying, how this might come across or who I'm going to, who you're going to have to inconvenience in order to just move forward with where the organization wants to go strategically. So I think, anytime we talk about this type of workflow tool, it's important to understand that performance improvement, it isn't a sprint, it isn't a project. It's really a daily workflow that needs to be ingrained, backed by software technology that really helps the people and the process do what they need to do without interference or hindrance. And so if I can summarize, the impact that this software has had on a number of our clients, I wanted to highlight some of the more really impactful changes that we've seen across a number of organizations. And of course, varying sizes of organizations have Hospital IQ in place. There's really no number of OR that it would make more sense to have versus not. No type of specialty. It's really kind of agnostic to the type of book of business you have. And whether you're multi-campus or single campus as well, I think it's a real delighter to surgeons, office staff, OR schedulers alike, as well as any type of operations folks who are really looking to get the data and make sure that there's a tight performance to the business. And so just highlighting some of those metrics that we've seen, pulling on, of course, some of those leading indicators that we talked about was really, having 500 plus hours of proactively released time is massive. And you're obviously going to see that with a bigger number of ORs. But what that translates to is more cases, higher OR utilization, and of course, the direct impact to margin improvement as well. And so if I were to just get a little bit more granular with the results of having the software in place, I just want to pick on Hospital for Special Surgery, one of our clients who have been live on the Hospital IQ perioperative solution for well over a year at this point, based in New York, 46 ORs, and they're actually really highly specialized, high-performing organization, but as you can see, we're facing the same problems that a lot of organizations face, blocked from achieving the next level of performance because of manual process. It's a common problem, and they were really looking to get to that next level, have additional transparency to their data, take a lot of their manual processes and digitize them so that they were able to be more planful. One of their biggest constraints was that block release, not having enough time to maximize their assets. And so with Hospital IQ's solution, they were basically able to start reallocating time. Like I said, those 500 hours of OR time was one definitely captured by HSS, and that was on a monthly basis. And so that just transformed their organization. They went manual to digital. They started being able to look at all of their data in a more timely, actionable manner, getting it out to all their stakeholders automatically. That gives back time to analysts almost overnight. Once you go live and have this software validated, your data analysts are virtually onto their next project. It's one of those things where you all of a sudden don't need somebody running any data behind the scenes. It's just there ready for you to consume on a regular cadence. And so for them, really it's starting to accommodate those additional cases is where they have really shined. And it's important to note too that HSS went live in the midst of the pandemic last year. And so they used our solution to basically come back online. So when ORs were closed and blocks were basically thrown out the window, this was their tool to have surgeons request the time that they needed based on caseload that was coming up, based on their demand, and being able to request the time that they needed and allocate that appropriately. And so I think they're continuing that path today, continuing to make sure that that's their source of truth for really attaining and optimizing their OR. And so if I were to close out today, I know we're getting to the end of our time, I just want to leave you with 4 key takeaways. And the first being, block scheduling, an important concept we're all used to, we all live by, but there are inherent efficiencies in the way that it's designed. And processes need to be improved holistically, but they're so complex to manage on a manual basis. So being able to address the bigger picture is really challenging. And AI-based systems, artificial intelligence, just like Hospital IQ, are ultimately the foundation of an improved approach. And OR time being managed dynamically versus static is the way to really get to that next level of performance and achieve the strategy in the organization that you're currently going after today. So I'm going to close out the presentation and turn it back over, and we can do some Q&A.
Thank you, Shawn and Kim, for a great presentation. As I mentioned earlier, if you have any questions for the presenters, you can submit them to me, and we will make sure that they get to the presenters. Our email address is webinar@mdpublishing.com. I would like to encourage everyone to visit today, our sponsors today, to learn more about the products and services that they provide to our industry. Please visit hospiq.com. A quick reminder that you can obtain your continuing education certificate by completing today's post-webinar survey. The survey will be emailed 1 hour after the completion of today's webinar. You must complete the survey in order to receive your 1 continuing education hour, and you'll be able to download the certificate once you submit the survey. If you have any questions, you can reach us again at webinar@mdpublishing.com. We will be back soon with another webinar. Please visit ortodaywebinars.live for more details and complimentary registration. Thank you all and have a great day.